Good morning, Journey family. Thank you so much for joining our online campus today. We appreciate you tuning in from wherever you might be in the world. Let me start by saying this. You're doing a great job. I know it hasn't been easy these last several weeks. We've been cooped up at home, been struggling to stay sane. Many of you are homeschooling your kids with varying success and clocking in a lot of hours on Zoom. You might be ready for a crazy Corona haircut, just for something different. So on behalf of the staff here at the Journey Church, you're doing great. Keep moving forward. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We can make it together. And we at the Journey Church have got your back. So if you're new around here and would like more information about how you can become part of the family here at the Journey, there should be a connection card button someplace on your screen. Click that and check it out. And hey, if you're a regular around here, I'm sure you can probably think of somebody you know who could use a little good news in their life right now. You guys get to click the invite button that should be on your screen and share this experience with someone else. Well, hey, it's Mother's Day, the day that we celebrate and honor all of the women that the Lord has used to grow us into the people that we are now. That could be biologically, in mentorship, in spirit, or by example. All of those things count. And if that's you today, thank you for being the woman that the Lord has called you to be. We have so many incredible women in our congregation and especially on our worship team. And there's nobody better to lead us in worship today. So as we get ready to sing together, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to one special lady who's joining us again this morning. She's part of our extended family. She might be a familiar face to some of you guys, but she is an ER nurse on the front lines out there who took time out on her day off to sing to us today. So this morning, I'm excited to just get out of the way and follow these ladies into the Lord's presence. Come along with us now.
Lost, but he brought me in. Oh, his love for me. Oh, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I has ransomed me, his grace runs deep. While I
Hey, Journey Church. Thanks again for being with us. Today is going to be a bit different than our normal Sunday rhythm. So if you like changes, you'll love what we are going to experience together. If you don't like change, go get a stronger cup of coffee right now, because either way, this is going to be a powerful service. But before we get to that, I want to bring you up to date on a few things happening here at The Journey that you can be a part of. First, we have a brand new financial peace class starting very soon. This could be a great time for you to work on a strong financial plan moving forward. The class will be online with our instructors from here at The Journey. To get more information or to sign up, you can go to the notes section and click on the link that's there. I also want to let you know that all of what you are experiencing right now in our brand new online campus takes a lot of work. I want to give a big old shout out to our associate pastor, Daniel. Look, that guy has had to learn so much new stuff about technology and has been putting in so many hours recently, making sure we are ready to go each week. So do me a favor, show Daniel some love by hitting that heart button on your chat screen right now. Now, one of the things we're learning because of our new setup and Daniel's hard work is we have to expand our tech team. If you have skills with sound, video, lighting, if you know how to edit film, build presentations, create animations, anything tech related, we would love to talk to you about joining this team. In your chat area to the right, you will see a tech team button popping up. If you're interested in jumping in or hearing more, take a moment to click that button and we'll get back to you soon. Of course, don't forget our Love Nova program. You can still drop off food and supplies on Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m. here at The Journey. You can volunteer to shop for food or drop off care packages. Just make sure to check it out at thejourneynova.org/lovenova. We appreciate all you are doing to make a difference in our community and beyond. Because even in times like this, there's so many good things that are happening at The Journey, and we just want to say thank you so much for being a part of what God is up to here. Now, as you probably know, this weekend we celebrate Mother's Day. It's a time to think about and appreciate Mom. Now, I hope you remembered, and if you didn't, make sure to give Mom a call later today. Now, our service today is going to be different than what we have been doing normally over the last 8 weeks. So you're not going to hear a message from me this week, but instead, we asked 4 amazing ladies from The Journey to share their stories. These stories come from tough decisions, from tough love, from near-death experiences to the pain of losing a mom. But as we listen together, there is in each story an underlying thread of hope. Now, for our parents out there, if you have teenagers, make sure they put their phones down and listen. If you have younger kids, there are a couple times where I would say this might be PG rated. You may have to explain some words to them, but my guess is they're running around playing Legos or asking you when you're going to make breakfast. But here's the deal. These stories are real, and they give us a glimpse into what God can do in our lives, no matter what's going on. So grab that coffee, find a good seat, sit back, and listen to how God brings hope when we might think there's no hope at all. Here's our first 2 stories.
I'm Brittany Smoyer. My husband and I live in DC. We are military, so my husband is in the U.S. Navy and he's stationed in DC. And we are born and raised in Michigan. We have been together since high school and we have lived here for 2 years. Growing up, I grew up in a non-Christian household, family who didn't believe, still doesn't believe, very physically and emotionally abusive household. When I graduated high school, I found out that I was pregnant. So my family had just moved to Texas and I went down to visit them and I wasn't going to tell them. My mom found out that I was pregnant while I was down there and told me that the only way that I would be allowed to go back to Michigan was if I received an abortion. So Coming back to Michigan, we knew it would be a little different and difficult. Unfortunately, all of John's church found out, and the news spread like wildfire. So it was a very hard time for us, because this church that he had grown up in, that he was literally there a week after he was born, all turned on him and turned on me. So at that point, we decided to stick it out, try it, and I started attending church there so I could prove that I was Christian enough, even though I wasn't a Christian, and became heavily involved in the children's ministry and volunteering, all while still being belittled constantly and people looking at us like we are naive children, which we were. But John and I decided to get married, and when we approached his church to get married in, they told us that we weren't displaying enough Christian qualities, therefore we could not get married. So we switched churches, and the first day there, we met with the pastor, and we were talking to him and told him a little bit about our backstory, and he looked at me and said, "Brittany, the past is the past, and you can't move forward if you're always stuck in it. Jesus wouldn't have died for that. He didn't die for you to be stuck in your past sins." At that point, I had already been toying with the idea of accepting Christ and becoming baptized. And after that conversation, I really felt led to it. So I was baptized then a few weeks before we got married. And then the following year, we got pregnant again, and I had a miscarriage. It was very hard for me to accept because John was away at boot camp. I was back alone in Michigan again. Family was back in Michigan. Excited for me this time, but not super excited about the miscarriage. And I just really felt alone and questioned if I would ever be able to have kids again. And that's kind of where my relationship with God was at that point, questioning him, questioning his choices. Why was I put in that situation to begin with, losing yet another child? Sorry. So feeling like I might be unable to bear children now because of a choice that I made in my past was really heavy on me. And it made me think that maybe, like, your sins aren't forgiven and God isn't here for me. And that was very, very difficult for me to deal with. We moved and we were able to rekindle our relationship together. We both needed that refresher of who God is and where he is in our lives. And then we got pregnant with our daughter. And then we got pregnant with our son. So I no longer felt the fear anymore of having children or of being torn apart, and that God was punishing me for something that I did have a choice on, but I felt like I didn't have a choice at the time. Now I have 2 children and a very amazing marriage and an amazing spot with Christ. I have since forgiven my family. It was a really hard thing for me to accept because I didn't really understand why I could forgive them and why something that was so detrimental and hurt me so much physically and emotionally, I was so willing to accept and forgive. God kept us together and kept us fighting for this, and to go through all the hardships that we went through made us stronger, and it brought me to Christ. Or if any of those events leading up to it and after it had happened, I don't know if Christ was ever on my radar. And now I can't imagine a life without him.
Troy and I were married about 8 years ago, and we knew that we wanted to have a family. We had Patrick in 2013, and Patrick was healthy and wonderful, an awesome little boy. We knew that we wanted a sibling for Patrick and that we wanted to expand our family. So as we tried to have another child, we ran into a lot of struggles. We had several miscarriages. We were really trying to find our path and find our way and understand what was happening to us. It was during this time, during these miscarriages, that we found the journey. that I found a mentor at the journey to help me through a lot of what was going on at that time. I also found a wonderful book, a Christian's Journey Through Miscarriage, that helped me understand sort of what was happening and where a healthy focus would be during this time. Finally, in December of 2016, we had Hunter. Hunter was a perfectly healthy baby boy. We waited a long time to have both of our children, and it all turned out fine. Everybody's happy and healthy. After Hunter was born, I suffered a massive heart attack and dissected multiple arteries in my head as a result of the birth. And so this was a trying time. After many years of praying to God to have children, I finally had both of my boys, and it almost killed me. I again was surrounded by the church family as I was in the hospital and as my husband was home with both of our children. They came in, they prayed with us, they brought us food, everything that we needed to sort of get through this time. I was angry, of course. I had a lot of honest conversations with God. I didn't understand why something that I had wanted so much was such a struggle. There were a couple of verses that really helped me as I was trying to grow a family, as I was in the hospital and recovering. And one of those was Proverbs 3:5. I have it still on my mirror today. It helped me remember that that there was a sort of a purpose in my pain, and that if I trusted God, that things would be okay and that we would all get through this. Troy and I really had to rely on each other through all these ups and downs. It definitely put a strain on our relationship, but it certainly made us stronger. Troy really was the one that continually focused us back on trusting God and trusting what God's plan was. Troy also took on a lot of responsibility after I had Hunter. In total, I was in the hospital for several weeks, away from my newborn for most of that, and away from my 3-year-old, and away from Troy. So Troy had to figure out a lot of things on his own that I felt were my responsibility as a mother, but I wasn't there to do it. But Troy and I, we both, through this, we just continue to strengthen our relationship. Troy now leads a small group. I think that was a sort of an outcome of some of what we've been through. You know, the relationship with God, though, today continues to grow as we look back at everything that we have gone through and how we can use that and help others and find some purpose in the pain that we experienced. I love being a mom. It's crazy and wonderful and loud and messy, and it's everything that I imagined it would be. It has its ups and downs, but it is perfect. The sound of my children saying I love you is everything in the world to me. I love them with my entire heart.
Wow. I mean, both of those stories are so powerful. From tough decisions to tough times, the one constant I heard from Brittany and Leslie was hope. That even in those tough times, God brought hope. Now, did you catch that verse from Proverbs Leslie talked about? Proverbs 3:5. It says, and let me read it one more time. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding. Even when our lives seem to be falling apart, even when we can't understand what's happening, even when we aren't sure what our next steps might be, the best thing we can do is to trust God. Now, the outcome may not be what we expected. The direction God takes us may be very different than what we had planned out. But when we trust in God, as we see in the life of Brittany and Leslie, God brings us that hope. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding. We have 2 more stories we're going to share now. Kelly and Vanessa are going to share about the relationship with their moms. And here's what you're going to find. 2 ladies trusting in God and finding hope because of that trust. Now listen to their stories.
Hi, my name is Kelly Ingstrand. I'm originally from Burke, Virginia. I grew up in Northern Virginia my whole life. After high school, I went to Radford for a semester. I failed out, and my parents no longer wanted me to go back to school. They were afraid that they would just be wasting their money. So I came home. My mom helped me find a job. I got fired from that job for not showing up because I had gone out the night before and partied with my friends. It was a continuous thing of me going out every night, drinking and smoking a lot of pot. My parents had basically one rule when I had come back home from college was my curfew. I didn't follow that rule. It was the only rule they had for me, and eventually they got fed up. So at 18, I was kicked out of my house. So I got in my car and I left. I spent that summer sleeping in my car. Every once in a while I'd stay at my brother's house, he was kind enough to open his doors to me, but he also had a set of rules that I didn't like, so I didn't stay there very long. I just felt really lost and I didn't know who to turn to, so instead of turning to my parents or turning to God, I turned to the people that I thought were friends that I partied with. So my mom and I obviously were not close, and I would say it was probably from age 18 where I kept a lot of that bitterness about being kicked out of the house and till I was about 26. For some reason I just held on to that, even though my mom had helped me in so many different ways. She prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed and prayed for so long for me to have a relationship with her again. And she was really, really hurt by it. Once I had met my husband, I really wanted her to get to know him, and I guess that's really where our relationship started to mend. Through that, I started to build a relationship back with my mom. She talked to me a lot about God. I felt during that time that God was very distant from me. He wasn't walking with me. I definitely was not walking with him. He was this great idea that I had growing up Catholic, but it wasn't a relationship that I had with him. I was interested in going to church, and Jerry, who was the pastor at the Journey, would come into my restaurant and talk to my coworkers about the Journey, and my coworkers would talk to me about what Jerry would say. And so one time I was serving Jerry and he gave me his business card to look up the information about the Journey. She went online and looked it up to see what the Journey was about, and she said, "Kelly, I really think this is a great church for you to join." And I know her prayers had been answered. I finally felt it in my heart that I needed to be baptized, and Jerry baptized me, and it was just such a wonderful day. And of course my mom was there and was so proud of me. Now that I look back on those difficult years, I really see God working in my life. I knew I didn't feel his presence, but now I know that he was there all the time, honestly protecting me from the things that I was doing to myself. He loved me so much to let me get out of that phase of my life, even though it's one of the biggest regrets that I have in my life of not being in a great relationship with my mom. God says that it's okay. She's forgiven me. He's forgiven me. And it's okay to forgive myself. My relationship with my mom now is fantastic. You know, we've really repaired our relationship, and I just really, really cherish it.
My name is Vanessa Muñiz. I grew up in the Bronx, New York. I am one of 4 kids. At 26, I was in a really pivotal life moment. My husband of 3 years decided to tell me out of nowhere that he no longer loved me and didn't want to be in a marriage. At that point in time, I was all alone. I was living down here, didn't have any family. So for me, it was one of those moments where I think, not that I hit rock bottom, but that I felt so alone, and I knew that the only thing that could fill me was God. My mom was a great teacher. She always was a big believer in you making your own mistakes and you having to learn for yourself how to get up when you fall. Not that she wouldn't be there when you fall. She would be there with the biggest hug. Right as I was going through my separation, I was going through a really low point in my life, just feeling down. And I remember calling my mom, and my mom kind of consoling me and talking me through my feelings, but there was something she said that I would never forget. And she told me, you know, Vanessa, you know how much I love you. And I said, yeah, of course, I know that you love me. She was like, I would give everything up in this world if I could switch places, if I can take your pain away. And I said, yeah. She was like, with how much you know that I love you, there's someone that loves you more. And I really never thought about God's love in the sense of that. Like, to think that God loved me more than my mom was very profound to me. So my mom became very ill around March 26-ish. She started to develop a really bad cold. It started off. She was really nasally, congested. Then she started to experience like a loss of taste and smell. And she started to run a fever. On March 29th, it was a Monday, my dad called me and told me, your mom's gonna go to the hospital today. They waited 6 hours for an ambulance. That's how bad things were in New York. That 6 hours went by, called twice, and no ambulance showed up. At that point in time, we just told him to take her, that he just had to drive her, and unfortunately he was gonna have to leave her at the front door because they weren't letting anyone else in. We didn't know that that would be the last time that he would see her until we had to say goodbye. She celebrated her 50th birthday on April 6th in the hospital. We called her and sang to her and told her how much we loved her and that we just needed her to wake up because there were so many people that needed to see her face. April 7th, we got the call that my mom suffered a massive brain bleed. My mom took her last breath on April 10th at 11:35 in the morning. With my mom's passing, obviously, I've been thinking about my mom a ton lately and thinking of the last words we shared or any wisdom that she shared to me through the course of my life. I think the last thing that I remember me and my mom talking about was just telling each other how much we loved each other. That was something my mom always did. My mom always wanted to make sure that I was loved. And my mom was loved. I know she knew that she was loved. Our last conversations was just saying, like, I need prayer. It was her in the hospital. I could barely understand her. But her telling me that she just needed her prayer warriors and that she knew that God was in the midst of her situation. And if there's anything that I will ever take away from my mom was the woman of faith that she was. And I think what I will always carry on is her always telling me, don't lose it. It doesn't matter how bad it gets, how dark it seems. Look for the light and it'll bring you out of it. And I think that in the midst of this situation and me losing her, I haven't been angry with God. I haven't had any bitterness or resentment. The way I see it is she was God's before she was my mom. Am I hurting? Yes. Do we still want her here to partake in all the laughter and joy and even the pain that we may still experience? Of course. But I have faith that God is going to continue to see me through this, see my family through this, and that through this will be my testimony and He will be glorified.
I mean, once again, wow. I had the privilege of being at each one of the tapings for these 4 ladies and their stories, and I've watched these clips many times, and I'll be honest with you, every single time I hear these incredible stories, I tear up. The reason is the pain is real, the struggles are real, the questions are real, and to hear each lady share their experiences with us pulls us into what they went through. But again, there's something their stories make clear to me, that in the pain, there's hope. Maybe what you saw today is your story too. You have been there yourself. You have felt what those ladies felt, or it could be you are living those experiences out right now. Maybe for others, and I'm talking to all of us here, not just ladies, guys, I'm talking to you too. It could be that their stories aren't your stories, but they do remind you of your own struggles, your own doubts, your own pain. Today, even though that part of these stories is what we tend to connect with, I want us to focus on that other part, the hope. Listen, no matter what you have faced, no matter what you are going through, there is hope. A hope that comes when we let go and trust God to lead us. Back to Proverbs. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding. See, hope comes from trusting in Jesus, not in ourselves. And so maybe you feel hopeless today. And man, we would love to pray with you and for you. Go to our prayer button on the screen, and our hosts are waiting to pray for you. Let them pray hope over you right now. And maybe you feel hopeless because you aren't trusting fully in Jesus. You haven't given your whole self to Jesus. Why not make Jesus the leader of your life so you can have that hope? Or it could be you're ready to take that next step of baptism. And we would love to talk to you about that next step right now. Go to the connection card on your screen, click on it, fill that information out, and let us know. Maybe you found the same kind of hope these amazing ladies shared with us. You know what having hope can do. You know what hope only comes through Jesus. Why not share that hope with others? At times like this, where so many people feel hopeless, why not be the example of hope to those around you? Maybe you just needed a reminder that our hope comes from trusting in God by following Jesus Christ. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding. Are you trying to find hope in your own way? Or are you trusting God and the hope only God can give? I can't think of a better way to finish this time today than just to have some communion together. Because when I think about communion, I think about hope. That because of God sending Jesus to this earth, I can have hope. Even when life may seem hopeless, God sends hope through Jesus. And all I'm asked to do, trust in God because of that gift. Like I said earlier, this morning is a little bit different than in the past. Our worship team is actually going to lead us in a song called In Christ Alone. You can sing along or just sit and listen to the words as we reflect on what we heard today. And when they're done, I'll come back on and we'll take communion together. But let's sing about that hope.
In Christ alone, my hope is found. He is my light, my strength, my song. This cornerstone, this to save, till on the cross as Jesus died, the wrath of God was satisfied. For every sin on him was laid. Here in the death of Christ I live. There in the ground his body lay, light of the world by darkness slain, then bursting forth in glorious day, up from the grave he rose again, and as he stands in victory, sin's curse has lost its grip on me. For I am his, and he is mine, bought with the precious blood of Christ. No guilt in life, no fear in death. This is the power of Christ in me. From life's first cry to final breath, Jesus commands my destiny. No power of hell, no scheme of man can ever pluck me from his hand, till he returns or calls me home. Here in the path of Christ I'll stand.
Go ahead and grab your communion items right now. And as you do, think about that verse again. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not depend on your own understanding. This morning we show our trust in God through the taking of the bread and juice, that through these symbols we know there is hope for us through Jesus. Let's take the bread together. Now let's take the juice. Let's pray. God, sometimes we go through life feeling hopeless. And my prayer for us today, that if that's the place we are at because of being reminded of our past, being reminded of our struggles, our doubts, our questions, our pain, that God, that through that hopelessness we can be reminded that you give us hope through Jesus Christ. Maybe for others of us, we feel hopeless because of the situation that our whole world finds itself in right now. God, I ask that we would sense and feel that hope that only comes through Jesus in times like this. God, I am so grateful for these women who shared their stories, and how in those stories, in the pain, there was always hope. And they found that hope because of Jesus. And I pray we find that same hope because of Jesus too. So God, as we go through the rest of our day, through the rest of this week, I pray that we experience that kind of hope every day, because we put our trust in you and not in ourselves. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, once again, I want to thank those four amazing women for sharing their stories, incredible stories of what they have gone through and the hope they found through Jesus Christ. And maybe that's where you are too, and I pray that you find that hope also. Well, happy Mother's Day. We hope that you enjoy your day today. If you are a mom, if you're not a mom, hey, we love you and we love all of you, and we just hope that you'll take some time to contact your mom and appreciate her today and just the time that she invested in you. And we look forward to seeing you all again next week. Have a great one.